Welcome to my slideshow. 2022. Another year, another slideshow. Another Eurovision cycle, another semifinal slideshow. Um, you know, at first glance, I thought semifinal one was going to be the tough semifinal to decide, but as you'll see, that was not the case once we got down to the nitty gritty. But let's get started. In this presentation, I'll give you some of my general thoughts on the 2022 cycle, or the general state of Eurovision in the context of 2022, a crazy year ongoing. We'll go over my rankings of the songs, semifinal one, semifinal two. We'll summarize those up, give you some final thoughts at the end. After my final predictions summed up again, semifinal one and two. So let's get started with general thoughts. What are my general thoughts? First and foremost, we're still in a pandemic. The pandemic isn't over just because you're over it, as the viral video goes. We're still in a pandemic. Here's some statistics when you just Google coronavirus cases, and you can see information on screen. In 2020, March 18th, 2020 was when the Eurovision 2020 contest was canceled. So looking at March 17th data, 15,000 cases right before it was canceled in 2020. 1.8 million cases yesterday. Context, context, right? But let's look at deaths, because again, 15,000 plus cases, only 810 deaths per day, of course, a ridiculous amount. Again, this is March 2020, March 17, 2020, the day right before they canceled the concert, right? And you can see from the overall graph that relative to since then, it was still relatively, little. Yesterday, 4,976 deaths. These are all worldwide statistics, okay? So when you consider that 2 years on, the numbers have increased absolutely, it's a bit interesting, just the mindset we're all in, right? Because presumably a majority of us are vaccinated, and we've been wearing the mask, but maybe some people are done with the mask now. It's just interesting to consider. However, I have to say that looking at this data, it's not the scale of increase, cases, the way cases increase versus the way deaths increase, it's not at all proportional, okay? 122 times increase in cases, about a 6-time increase in deaths. Granted, we've had 2+ years of breakthroughs in treatment. How many millions of deaths also? And vaccinations. So yes, it's not 122 times the increase, but it's still an increase nonetheless, okay? And even if you want to say, well, why aren't I talking about 2021? You're right, March 2021, there was a higher amount of deaths last year around this time, but it's not much different than 5,000 plus, okay? It's not such a huge difference. It's still ridiculous. So anyway, moving on to the next topic at hand, my next thought, the elephant in the room. There is a war in Ukraine. And I don't really want to say anything, because anything I say in my mind, I imagine will be very shallow to the topic, because again, in the context of world events, what is a song contest, right? It's like it doesn't feel important. But it's happening. There are reasons to say, sure, it should happen, because if anything, it'll make the exclusion more significant, right? And then also the idea of cultural preservation, cultural soft power war, what have you. So that's, something to be said, that culture still needs to continue on, in any case, in different senses, in terms of soft power battles, soft proxy war battles, right? So thoughts with Ukraine and Ukrainians who are suffering right now, because generally speaking, this is not, you know, of much impact in relation to what's going on in people's lives. But also, people want to be distracted sometimes. People need to take their minds off of things. So also, there's that, and not just people who are not directly affected by it, but especially people who are um, affected by it. I will only imagine. So, you know, thoughts about how the pandemic, the ongoing war, could we see another cancellation in 2022? Will it just be impacts of absences and, um, maybe audience overall? Because Eurovision came back 2021, had a huge record breaking audience. Could that be the case this year? Or will we see um, effects of the pandemic more directly? Um, who knows? How will this affect, general voting? That's something to be talked about later on. Anyway, semifinals. Before we get to that, here are my rankings of the 40 songs from 1 to 40. Azerbaijan, number 1. Germany, number 40, right? Taking out the 5 who don't even need to compete in the semifinals, so we don't need to talk about them today. Here are the rankings, right? So then, looking at semifinal 1, looking at the order of participants, and looking at how I have ranked them, adjusted out of the 35, my average ranking for the semifinal was 19.2. Okay, keep that number briefly in mind, 19.2. Anyway, looking at the semifinal and how I ranked each individual entry, my qualifiers just based on that personal ranking, even though that's not how I choose my semifinal projections. My automatic 10 out of the first semifinal are Latvia, Lithuania, Ukraine, Slovenia, Netherlands, Norway, Croatia, Denmark, Iceland, Greece. Okay, those are my 10. But, can we trust my 10? No. No is the answer. I don't trust my 10 at first glance regardless. So what I did was I went on YouTube, very cursory, very casually looked up the song entries and looked at the highest viewed video, the highest view count for the respective videos. I have an asterisk by the Albanian song because the Albanian song went for a revamp, so I only referenced the revamped song in this case. Anyway, going off of views, again, cursory search I did, the because I don't think we have the top 10 streamed from the Eurovision channel yet. Going off of views, the 10 automatic qualifiers here would be in order of views: Ukraine, Norway, the Netherlands, Albania, Austria, Latvia, Lithuania, Armenia, Portugal. Okay, but do I trust this? No, I don't, because people skew views. Multiple videos are released. The timing of video release is a thing, because a video that's been out for 3 months compared to a video that's been out for 3 weeks, it's different. You can't really balance that out, right? So I just use this to inform my selection. Okay, so comparing my semifinal 1 based off of ranking to semifinal 1 based off of view search, we look at the ones we have in common. In common between the two groups, we have Ukraine, Norway, Netherlands, Lithuania, Latvia. 5 in common, okay? But there are some I couldn't ignore. So what did I decide between the two groups? Looking at these 2 sets of rankings, who did I put my mind on? Who did I put my money on? Money here is a metaphorical concept because I do know gambling. Thank you. I said Ukraine, the Netherlands, Lithuania, Norway. I'm not sure about Latvia. Okay, so of the five that I had between shared groups, I said 4 out of 5. I'm confident on 4 out of 5. Ukraine, Netherlands, Norway, Lithuania. Then I said Portugal. I don't think there's any way Portugal is not making it through. I would tell you that Portugal is a beautiful, beautiful song. I don't think there's any way it's not making it through. Greece, same goes for Greece. It's same goes for Greece. It's a beautiful song. I can't say no to Greece. How could I? Austria, it's not the wildest song for me personally, but I think between it being a dance track, between the heavy production, I think it stands a solid chance. Also, the views seemingly it's popular. It didn't come out super recently. Okay, um, Armenia. It's not my cup of tea necessarily, but it has a lot of views relative to the time it came out. One, I think people are gonna like it generally speaking. So that's where I put my money on. Iceland, another earworm song. Okay, I don't know about it though, but another earworm song. And then I couldn't decide. I couldn't decide between Latvia and Slovenia. For me personally, they both ranked high. Latvia and Slovenia, number 2 and number 6, respectively. But I couldn't decide on a 10th. Okay, I couldn't decide on a 10th. I just couldn't. This was tough. But then also, I'm like, wait a minute, who? And I do this in this previous years. If there was one I would say I'm not sure about, or someone here who doesn't get in, who would be the next one to get in? Croatia, maybe? Croatia, maybe? Even though I have to say, the song from Denmark, right? The song from Denmark, I stay singing that all the time. All the time. All the things that I da 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 na 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 when you needed me the most. You never know. Okay, so but like, and again, if we look at my rankings, my 10 based on rankings, it's definitely in there. I can't lie and tell you that I wouldn't love to be 100% right based on my rankings because I feel like those are really quality songs, okay? But my rankings don't have Portugal. I ranked it lower, right? But my rankings don't have Portugal. So I'm not going to be 100% right because how is Portugal not going to make it in? I don't see that happening, okay? Moving on to semifinal 2, a refresher again on my adjusted rankings, removing the big five. Semifinal 2, again, looking at the order, averaging the entries based on personal ranking, this averaged 16.9, so higher than 19.2, which tracks with another comment. Someone said that they thought that semifinal 2 was going to be the harder one. Semifinal 1, I had a lot that were at extremes. They were either super low or they were towards the front. This is more a mix of in the middle and some throughout. Okay, so this makes sense. The 16.9. So again, who are my top 5 based on personal rankings? Azerbaijan, Georgia, Poland, Romania, Cyprus, Belgium, Sweden, Australia, Czech Republic, Ireland. Okay. We go again to the cursory search of video views. Again, these are a search that was on today, April 1st. And again, Israel also had a revamp, so I only referenced the revamp song. North Macedonia, quote, had a revamp, but I think it's way too slight to call it a true revamp, so I didn't even consider that there. The lyric video versus the official video was about 100,000 difference, which would have made a dent had it been one of my top 10 qualifiers, but it wasn't. Okay. So my top 10 qualifiers, who were they? Serbia. That video, the most viewed video I could see of in Copretano has 12 million views. Whether you think that's people hyping it up or not, I think it's moving on. I think the staging is fantastic. I think it's, it's quintessential quirky Eurovision if you are not super into the song, the staging. But I think it's moving on personally. Anyway, Serbia, Poland, Finland, Cyprus, Sweden, Czech Republic, Romania, Belgium, Montenegro, San Marino. Okay, this is just based off of, again, my cursory search. So again, looking at the two sets of 10 quote based on these quote predictions, who did I decide we're definitely going through? But first, who did we have in common between the two groups? Poland, Cyprus, Sweden, Czech Republic, Romania, Belgium. Now, again, of those five, I said, you know what? I think only, excuse me, of those six, I think only five are moving on. Okay? Poland, Cyprus, Sweden, Romania, Belgium. Czech Republic, one of the first songs to come out. It's a danceable song. For me, I don't know that it'll stand out enough. Definitely hit the 1 million, view mark, so there are people who like it. But I don't know that it'll stand out enough. It's just my thoughts, right? Okay. Again, so then I said Serbia, 12 million views. I don't. How is that gonna work? That you have 12 million views on YouTube, but you don't make it through the semifinals? How would that work? Finland, I see making through. It's a really catchy song, despite that one lyric I don't care for. Really catchy song. I think the staging is gonna be top staging, right? That the staging that I saw in that final or whatever looked great. I don't know if they're gonna change it up or not, but staging, I have no doubt. Azerbaijan just came out. I put it at number one. It just hit me immediately. It's a beautiful, beautiful song. Very, vocally, a lot of prowess there. Kind of like John's Tears for me. The feel of it, generally speaking. Maybe I could see it not qualifying, but I don't think it won't. I think it will qualify. Okay, Georgia. Some people might come at me at this, but first of all, that video hasn't even premiered yet. That music video hasn't even premiered yet. The actual music video. I just know, based off of the song, that the staging is gonna be some type of wild trip. Okay, and then the one I was just like, I don't know. Estonia, I gave it to. Estonia. It just feels like the production is gonna be there. The vocals are probably gonna be there, enunciative or not. I feel like it's gonna be a fun time, okay? But again, I said, who am I maybe sliding, and who am I maybe getting wrong? Who else could I see here, right? Australia, maybe. Australia, another great vocalist. Australia, maybe. And even though it came out really late, and it ranks relatively low for me, I can't lie and say it's not a catchy song, and I can't lie and say that my impression isn't that. Rather, my impression is that it's kind of like a split, like people either really like it or they don't. Okay, and given how it's working on me, I think this could be I think Malta could end up in it. So those are the two I said. I don't know. Out of my 10, my, what do you call that? My standard deviants are Australia and Malta. Okay. Of course, like always, I would love to see a wild upset, if only for the narrative of a wild upset, right? Because on the other hand, Montenegro is really great. Montenegro is a fantastic song. I just don't know that it's not a wild ballad enough to end up in the semifinals, right? And I may be sliding Montenegro by putting in Georgia or any of these other groups. You could say that. You could argue that. But this is just my impression, my vibe. So again, Georgia, I think the staging is gonna win people over, and just the energy of it all. Poland, I have questions about. Poland has high views. Poland is a lovely song, but is it too ballad? Is it too ballady? Is it too? I don't know. I don't know. I mean, it has almost 3 million views. So again, similar to Serbia, is it possible that it has so many views on YouTube already, and it's not gonna pass through the semifinals? I don't know. I don't know. Let me know if there is some wild thing you think I'm wrong in either of the semifinals. But anyway, here are again the summation of of my quote um you know semifinals. Who am I sliding? Let me know. But final thoughts. It's 2022. It's like year three, depending on how you look at when I started. Year three. We're going on year three of the pandemic. Let's just enjoy the vibes and the music. Because it's great to take a moment aside from the crises of the world and just enjoy oneself every now and then. So, regardless of or taking into consideration what's going on in the world, take time out, and enjoy the music. That's should be a general approach that we've all learned at this point 3 years on in terms of mental health breaks. So yeah, year three of the pandemic, year two post break, and it's an interesting selection. I gotta say the 2020 cycle of songs is a special type of delicious when you listen to it, right? But this is also a vibe. Anyway, let me know which songs you think I'm wild ridiculous for not including in my semifinal predictions, or which songs you agree with. I'm sure. I mean, I feel like semifinal one is kind of like there's not so much wild that I said there, but maybe semifinal two is a bit more contentious. Anyway, let me know. Thanks for watching. Until next time, goodbye.